Okay, so video number 100 on youtube.com/smarkoutmoment. Thank you everybody who's watched the videos enough that I kept doing this instead of quitting at fucking video number 8.
He was going to quit as soon as he met me.
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck is this Iranian bastard on my show?
Right. So, luckily, we have a topic that we can talk about that kind of warrants being video number 100, and that's that WWE officials are saying that it's just not the way it used to be. That it used to be where your mid-card talent would try extremely hard to get into the main event, and your main eventers were people you could really trust and everything. But nowadays, there's only a few names that you can really be main event people, and the rest just aren't motivated enough to do it. And this bothers the hell out of me when they say this, for a couple different reasons. First off, now, one of the things that I have here, and if you're watching the video version of this, you'll be able to see it. And if you are just listening to the audio, then I apologize, and I'll try to read them off real quick. I took the entire roster from WWE.com. Everybody that they have listed for Raw and for Smackdown. Nobody for NXT because they don't necessarily count. And they don't even have them listed under Superstars for some reason. You take all those people, and you have a group of about maybe 80 people, something along those lines. But now, if you remove all of the people from that list that are divas and supporting talent, or like announcers, or any other kind of talent like that, they have them all grouped together. You know, your people like Goldust, Booker T, Justin Roberts, Josh Matthews, John Laurinaitis, Natalia. The list goes on and on and on. You knock out a whole group of people, and you're left with, I'm not going to ballpark the number here, but something along maybe 40 people. Out of those people, some of them are already main eventers. Now, the ones, I'll read this one off to you because it's not as long of a list. These are the people, you guys can agree or disagree with me here, and we can talk about it, that these people are either the main eventers, or they're the people that are essentially main eventers, and they're just a little bit off or something like that. Now, Alberto Del Rio, Big Show, Chris Jericho, Christian, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler, John Cena, Kane, Mark Henry, R-Truth, Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, Sheamus, The Great Khali, The Miz, Triple H, Undertaker, and Wade Barrett. Agree or disagree that those guys are the upper echelon?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that leaves only a few other people, necessarily. Those people are a part of kind of two separate groups here. They're the people that have no shot at getting any kind of main event push. And these people are, you know, the JTG, Primo, and Epico. Like, you know, it's just never going to happen.
Santinos.
Santinos?
Yep.
Santino even has a better shot than what some of these people do. I mean, Yoshitatsu is never going to be a world champion. Jay and Jimmy Uso, it's just not going to happen. Kurt Hawkins, he doesn't even show up on Raw for years, so he's clearly not going to. So you're left with a list of only about maybe 15 people that they're bitching and complaining about. These 15 or so people, is it really necessarily their fault? Now, these people, I'll read this list off too. And then we can kind of break them down a little bit. Alex Riley, Brodus Clay, Camacho, he's brand new. He's never wrestled one. He wrestled one match, the Battle Royal on SmackDown. David Otunga, Drew McIntyre, Epico, Evan Bourne, Ezekiel Jackson, Heath Slater, Unico, Jack Swagger, The Usos, Jinder Mahal, Johnny Curtis, JTG, Justin Gabriel, Kofi Kingston, Mason Ryan, Michael McGillicuddy, Primo, Santino, Sin Cara, Ted DiBiase, Trent Beretta, Tyler Rex, Tyson Kidd, William Regal, Yoshitatsu, Zack Ryder. You eliminated all those ones that have no shot at all, and you're left with the people like the Alex Rileys and the Drew McIntyres and all that. I personally, what pisses me off about what them saying that these people aren't hungry is I see a lot of these guys trying their asses off and getting nowhere, and it's not because of the fact that they aren't trying to get themselves over. It's that they have no opportunity to get themselves over. Let's just start with Alex Riley. For a guy like Alex Riley, he came on to NXT and he was like the star of that season. I mean, he had a lot of other bigger names and everything like that, but he made himself a very big presence for that season. What's Alex Riley done ever since they dropped the feud with The Miz?
He's done nothing. He's been in limbo.
Right.
Superstars at the best.
Well, he did. He had like a 1 month spat with Ziggler over the U.S. title, and then literally after that, I don't remember seeing him on TV before the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, because they
kind
just
of
threw
gone.
him away.
Yeah,
They
put
literally
nothing into
replaced him with Swagger.
Right. They put nothing into him at all. They have him cut how many promos? None in the past
Yeah.
8 months or something like that.
So he can't maintain his relevance.
He's had no feuds. He's only been on Superstars, so he hasn't even been jobbing on Raw or SmackDown. I don't know why they didn't send him over to SmackDown in the first place when he split up with The Miz. He was already on SmackDown, but somebody like an Alex Riley, he has mic skills. He had a good gimmick. They completely got rid of the gimmick. He could have been the varsity villain for at least 2 years. And then they give him nothing to do. They have no feuds or anything like that. So what is he supposed to do? I mean, the guy was injured for a little bit, and that's maybe not necessarily his fault. Maybe it is. You can't kind of blame WWE Creative for him getting injured.
But they still could have maintained some sort of relevance by having him
Right.
managing someone or team up with somebody.
He could have been managing somebody. He could have been in backstage segments. He could have just cut a promo every once in a while.
Or he could have done what Punk did and go for the announce table.
Could have done that. He could have just even come back and then put him in a storyline.
Yeah.
Just the simplest idea of let's just remind people that he's there, and they don't do that. Now Alex Riley, he shows up in the Battle Royal, and it's like, oh wait, that's Alex Riley. I guess he's not still injured. That kind of a thing.
Yeah, or sort of give him enough to sort of feed him to the Miz.
Mm-hmm. And that was
it. Yeah, he did nothing to help anybody.
And Brodus Clay, we've been having talks about how, like, oh, the character is this and the character is that. Brodus didn't want that character in the first place. He wanted to be a monster heel from what we've been hearing, and they gave him that gimmick. And he, you know what he said? He said, oh, you know what? I'll take it. I'll do it. I want to be on TV. That right there is motivation to be on the roster. What do they do with it? They get tired of it after a few weeks, and then they say, well, we're not going to put you on TV anymore. You need to work on your in-ring skills. If his in-ring skills were so bad that they need to take him off TV, why did they put him on TV in the first place?
Again, it's bad booking.
It's this whole list of these people. I mean, you've got the Ezekiel Jacksons. What has he done since the Intercontinental title? Nothing.
Yeah, but Ezekiel Jackson is shit.
And not to mention, I think he is the biggest, painfully obvious transitional champion ever. They just needed somebody to take the belt off of Barrett because he wasn't doing anything with it, just so somebody could, like, lose the title to Rhodes. That's basically the only service his whole title reign had.
Right.
I agree.
Take it off of Barrett because he's not doing anything with it, and let's put it on the person that we, really want to hold the belt.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, they could have gone with it because he was still getting pops when he was doing the whole repetitive body slams. But they didn't run with it.
They didn't even have Zeke feud with Cody after he won the belt from him. They just
dropped it immediately.
Done, dropped. And then they had, DiBiase go after Rhodes, like, shortly after that, and then they dropped that too. And Ted DiBiase is another person that, they could have got a lot more out of that Rhodes-DiBiase feud, given their history, but they got, like, one pay-per-view match out of it, and that was it.
Right.
They're not giving these guys opportunity. They just drop things creatively because they don't know where to go with them, and then they blame the talent for not stepping up, and that's not fair.
Right, it's a different story to me.
Also,
go ahead.
who stepped up like Ryder, right? He got given everything, and then they just took it all away from him, and now he's like a blip.
Mm-hmm. I know Dace wants to chime in on this.
Well, first of all, that friggin' disgusts me what they're doing with Ryder.
I agree.
I feel like they did a couple gimmicks such as Ryder, Brodus, and they realized they were actually going over and then buried it the minute it actually peaked. And that irritates me. But if you also look at WrestleMania, you've got five out of the 6 guys involved so far are attitude guys. You've got HBK, you've got Jericho, you've got Triple H, Undertaker, Rock. So they're burying their own talent by pushing these older guys that'll be gone in a year or two. So I'm just really bitter about the whole Ryder thing.
And like we were saying about the whole this gimmick gets over and then they get like panicky about it and they just cut the chain. Sometimes they don't even give the people the chance to get that kind of a gimmick. Look what they're doing with Drew McIntyre right now. He's got a losing streak thing, and they're making him look like a jackass. He used to be the chosen one, and I hated when they did the whole thing with... Because they kind of have like a 50-50 thing here. Either they take something and they don't want to push it, and they don't want to push it, and they don't want to push it no matter what, until it dies off, and then they go, well, it must not have been popular in the first place. Or they take somebody who has nothing and they give them everything, and then they can't meet their expectations, so they go, well, you must not have been that great in the first place, we're taking away all of that. Now that's somebody like Drew McIntyre. They gave him the world, and then he wasn't just immediately a main event guy, so you lost the Intercontinental title, and now you're not even on TV for a while, and now you're on a losing streak. Drew McIntyre deserves better than that.
He was guilty by association, though.
Well, there's the whole Tiffany thing.
Tiffany. Yeah.
But even that, I mean, that's not... You punish the people that do bad things naturally because you don't want the bad publicity, but at the same time, it's been a while since then. And
I'm not saying it's right, because it's not right. It's the way they did it is the same way. The problem is, right, you've got about 5 or 6 guys booking these wrestlers. Then you've got all these producers who are getting in the Vince's ear as well. So you've got too many people trying to comment on these various gimmicks. But the problem is, it's not like the days of the Attitude Era where you could go out there and get the gimmick over yourself. Stone Cold got over because of Stone Cold. Taker got over because of Mark Calloway. The majority of these gimmicks got over because these guys went out there, they cut a promo, they saw the crowd and said, right, either drew them in or they fucking sunk and sucked badly. The ones that sucked badly, they just got rid of. The ones that were able to sort of maintain their position and move up the card, they kept on. That's the way it should have been. That's the status quo. But now, after Vince McMahon and his cronies thought it would be a best idea to write everybody's lines, everyone sounds generic. So how the hell are you going to get people over if they all sound the same? How are you going to get them over if you place them in the same gimmick, the same storyline, over and over and over again?
Well, basically
work.
Yeah, and basically, if they're doing that, that's like saying, well, we don't have enough faith in you guys to be able to go out there and entertain a crowd, so we'll write your lines for you. Sorry, we don't have enough faith in you to go out there and entertain a crowd. We don't think you can speak to them without us writing your lines for you. If that's not giving much to your roster, if you're having complete control over them, how else are these guys supposed to show what they can do if WWE's force-feeding everything for them to do? It's counterproductive. It's ridiculous.
And it's an issue
holding their hand.
And it's an issue too of both too much micromanaging and too little. They're kind of focusing too much on details that they don't need to be, like writing every single line of their scripts. And then at the same time, they're overlooking details that they need to be paying attention to. Like if you have a guy like Mason Ryan who isn't getting over with the crowd, don't just ignore that detail. Figure out a way to get him over with the crowd. This is WWE creative. They're supposed to be figuring out creative solutions for the product. It's not the actor's job in a TV sitcom to write a better sitcom. It's the writer's job. So if you want to call yourself WWE creative, a bunch of writers and producers of a television show, not a sports show where it all depends on the athletes, like it is in, the NFL and anything like that, then it's up to creative's job to figure out a creative solution to the problem. And it doesn't seem like they're willing to do that. It seems like they want to kind of place blame on the talent as if we don't want to do any of the work for you, but we don't think that you'll be able to do any of the work yourself. So unless you figure out a way to do the work without us not getting credit for it, then okay. You know, one of those things where it's like, I would rather you do all the work and then tell everybody that I did it if it's good, and if it's bad, then it's your fault, kind of a thing. Because look at somebody like a Justin Gabriel. Justin Gabriel came in here, and he's not a very charismatic guy. I mean, there's been worse, but there's been a hell of a lot better. He starts getting a push right now with the whole Cody Rhodes feud, and nothing really happens out of it. Something comes up with Kofi Kingston. He has a feud with Randy Orton. He starts getting pops. He starts getting over. He gets his mic skills improved and everything like that. Then what's happened to Kofi Kingston over the past 2 years? Nothing. He's finally in the Elimination Chamber, and he's in there because they probably just couldn't throw somebody else in there because of injuries.
Or that Morrison's gone now, so you need somebody to do high spots.
Right.
That was ridiculous.
So Carter comes into the company. He has nothing going for him other than his identity, which, I mean, that you can kind of make jokes here about the identity thing in the first place. He comes in here, but since they think that, we'll be able to just market the hell out of him, they market the hell out of him. Now, he gets injured and all that kind of stuff, and that stuff happens, but why didn't the Sin Cara feud could have been a hell of a lot better if they would have made it better. That doesn't change the in-ring work between the two of them. That still would have been botches and everything like that, but the feud itself would have been more interesting if creative would have gotten into it. And it's like, now that Unico has a different gimmick, I personally think he's a little bit more interesting because he's actually doing something. It's still kind of dumb with the whole fucking bike and everything like that, but
not to mention the feud with DiBiase, what he got mad because
DiBiase
didn't invite him to his barbecue or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of lame, but. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Not to mention with the whole Sin Cara thing. I mean, they rushed him on television. I mean, they brought him on TV like 2 months after they signed him. They didn't give him any time at all to kind of, train or kind of get used to, the size of their ring or how they wrestle. He's basically just thrown on TV, which, if you're from a different culture, there's obviously going to be some issues there.
Right. Even the language issue was tough to get around.
So that's that. And speaking about Kofi Kingston, he was already back in 2009. He was getting huge reactions as the United States champion.
Mm-hmm.
And then he dropped it to The Miz, and then he got this feud with Randy Orton. And that, if you remember the Madison Square Garden brawl that the two of them had, that was probably, a lot of us thought was going to be his defining moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like he was getting this huge Jeff Hardy-esque push, and then Orton beat him twice, and then that was it. It's like they just completely went on panic mode and said, no, maybe he can't draw or he won't be able to sell as much as everybody else. No, we're not giving him a chance. And then boop, done.
And what about Jack Swagger?
A risk, isn't it? That's the problem. They don't take those types of risks anymore.
Mm-hmm. When they do take the risk, it pays off. Look at Zack Ryder.
Yeah.
For when they had the title on him and before they started having Kane destroy him every week.
Yeah, Zack Ryder was getting the pops of the night. He was out popping The Rock. And it's like, they ignore it. Okay, well, if he gets bigger cheers than The Rock, then we need to fucking humble him. Why? Because he didn't say that he dyed his hair ahead of time and get permission?
This is the major issue. Now,
they nitpick.
The thing is, how the hell are you going to get these guys over if you keep sacrificing every little push they get? You're not going to do it. Bookers book. Writers, they write the shows. They don't write for the talent. It's your talent's job to get these gimmicks over. And they are capable of doing it. Brodus showed he was more than capable of doing it.
Mm-hmm. We went from the first episode hating his gimmick to the second episode going, all right, we kind of admit that it's sort of a little funny. To us, fucking loving this gimmick.
Yeah. And that was not
WWE creative doing it. It was fucking Brodus doing it.
Yeah.
But then
that's the thing as well. You look at these characters, they're supposed to be polarizing figures. They're the ones who get these gimmicks over. Dolph Ziggler started off being some shitty, hello, my name's Dolph Ziggler.
Well, even before that, he put up with the bullshit of being a cheerleader and a caddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not to
And
mention even R-Truth before like his whole heel turn. Most of that was just him doing
singing and
stuff
dancing, being a
allowed to.
party clown.
Yeah, basically just bringing up random crap and talking like a maniac, and
And
that
getting
got
blown
him
up out of
over
his shoes.
huge. And that was basically just him being allowed to go out there and, do whatever. So, the talent can, they can do this stuff, but, it's just they never get the chance to, and that's
Yeah.
really a big issue. And then it's not our fault, it's our talent's fault. They can't get over.
Mhm.
Well, you're not letting them, so
And if it's an issue of motivation, there's a couple things that I think that they're not paying attention to. One of them is it's not a cutthroat kind of business anymore where you need to play as much backstage politics and fuck people over. And, like, we hear tons of stories of how awful it used to be in the locker room back in, like, when Shawn Michaels was trying to make it and everything, where people are just like, if you don't go and you drink yourself into oblivion, the guys won't respect you and they'll hound you down until you fucking leave. And, like, nowadays it's more, we need to stay away from the drugs. We need to go to our rooms and play Xbox instead of party, like that kind of a thing. They still do, but there's less of that kind of thing. So I'm thinking one of the things that they subconsciously are doing is that they're considering that kind of relaxed attitude as not giving a shit because they're not willing to step on each other's toes. And it's a different story of being hungry as opposed from being ruthless. You can be hungry and really want to be a main event superstar at the WWE and not have to fuck people over in the process. And I think that if they would do that, how many stories do we hear about people like John Morrison? They're like, oh, well, Batista's fucking his girlfriend and he's not doing anything about it and fighting him, so he's a pussy and we're not going to push him at the product. That shouldn't matter. It should matter if he's getting pops from the crowd, if he's selling merchandise, if he's entertaining. It shouldn't be Morrison didn't fight Dave Bautista. Well, no, let me say that again. John Hennigan didn't fight Dave Bautista, and so now we don't respect him as a man or something like that. You know what I mean?
It should more be about, who's selling the most, because you're not going to look at ratings anymore, and you're not going to look at the gate, because those two things are becoming more and more relevant in today's day and age. It's who sells the most merchandise. Number 3 seller in the company in regards to merchandise sales is Zack Ryder. Number 1 tied is Cena and Punk. The Rock's merchandise isn't flying off the shelves. Because I'm sorry, any guy who says dicks to asses boots to asses doesn't really help.
What a show have you been watching? You've been watching TNA?
The fact is, when it comes down to the way these talents were pushed before and the way they're being pushed now, it doesn't work. And exactly what Dace was saying here, you get guys coming back in saying, oh, I want a main event at pay-per-view, and they're getting slingshotted above everybody else. And the agent's opinion, to me, doesn't mean fucking shit all. Because you've got guys, when they went down to evaluate talent, Punk was nearly cut. Because all the agents were sitting there going, oh, we don't want this guy, we don't want this guy, he's not old school enough, he's not this, he's not that. And that's just because Punk was sure of himself. He understood what he wanted, where he wanted to be, and he was hungry. And they were trying to cut this guy off before he even got a chance to debut in the main roster.
Well, look what happened with the CM Punk storyline with Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
They cut all the momentum out because Triple H wants to be involved in it.
Exactly.
And he can't deny either. He cannot deny that. It was Triple H wanted to be a part of the spotlight. It's obvious.
He came back right in the middle when Cena and Punk were doing a great job in the main event. Mm-hmm. Made himself the referee. And took it further with the whole Nash thing. And then Punk became an afterthought. He took the pin against Miz and Truth.
Which was baller.
And then Triple H goes on to feud with Nash and finishes off that feud, and Punk just becomes a little afterthought in the whole thing, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets beaten by Triple H, which was ridiculous. That match should have never happened to begin with. Especially that early. Punk
that could have been a main event at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and not to mention Punk was still kind of like half, he's still got
Tweener.
some heat, and yeah, pretty much he's still there. And then they have him going up against a huge baby face who's been face for like 4 years, and who constantly gets cheered. You know, it's if he's gonna lose to that guy, it's gonna slow down some of his momentum, especially if he's feuding with them.
Mhm.
You know, so that was just ridiculous.
Or Miz and Truth, another prime example. These guys were supposed to be built up as the main heels in the WWE.
Yeah, the big heel team faction
Yeah.
sort of thing, and then they get thrown around by Cena and The Rock and made to look like chumps.
Bad
And then
book-
for some
perfect.
reason, even though you have The Rock in there, which people are expecting is going to boost the sales of Survivor Series, you have the sales aren't that great. So what do? They blame The Miz. They don't blame The Rock. They blame The Miz. The Miz, the guy who has been
ego-driven.
promoting the WWE for years now, working his ass off constantly, and he's not hungry enough.
And he did a great job, in my opinion. He did a great job as the champion last year.
Fantastic job. I loved his reign as a champion. I wanted it to happen right afterward. I wanted him to win the title back from
I
Cena.
think he did a great job in the main event. You know, he sold merchandise. Ratings weren't down when he was champion. To be completely honest, I think he did a great job.
I didn't like Swerve at Mania. I hated the Swerve at Mania. It wasn't.
Well, it
needed.
could have been handled way better. The booking for
Yeah.
that show is just a completely different subject
It was a
in and of
clusterfuck.
itself.
And
But
this is the problem. It is the fact that these guys aren't being booked strong enough by creative. They're not being given that opportunity to. And even when they try to salvage themselves as well, like you look at with Miz, as soon as they split him and Truth up, Miz was cutting these like amazing promos,
Mm-hmm.
and then they buried him again.
Yeah,
And then
and
they
all they've
blame
been doing is burying him ever since.
Yeah, and then they keep blaming him and say, "Oh, he's not motivated enough." Well, you're burying the guy. Of course, he's not going to be motivated enough.
One of the things that we hear a lot about TNA, and then we don't really hear about it about WWE until the people leave, is the whole morale aspect.
Yeah.
Now, in TNA, people bitch about TNA while they're there. In WWE, they wait until they get fired, and then they go, that place was hell. And if you run a work environment that these people want to leave their dream job, then of course they're not going to be motivated enough because they're not being motivated. They're being punished for the little things that you're nitpicking. They're having backstage politics get in the way. They're presenting ideas to WWE Creative who are saying no. I mean, like, look at the
Or
thing
they
with
say
Tiffany
yes
and
then present it as someone else.
I was just going to say the thing with Tiffany and Drew McIntyre. They apparently suggested, why don't we have a storyline of the two of us getting together and me turning heel, me meaning Tiffany. So they go no. A little bit after they fire her, what do? They sack up Kelly with Drew McIntyre and start doing basically that kind of a storyline. Now, why couldn't they have done that with Tiffany?
Or even
If it was
Brodus
such a
Clay as
bad
well.
idea, why did they do it in the first place? And if it was such a good idea, why didn't they do it with Tiffany?
Yeah. That's the same thing with Clay. Clay came up to him apparently, and he originally came up with the concept of the Hall of Pain. They
Right.
said they loved the idea, they're going to use it on him, put him on the sidelines, and gave it to Mark Henry.
Mm-hmm. And now that would be the type of thing where, as much as I like what Mark Henry's been doing, that would be the type of thing where they would say, well, Mark Henry's been doing the Hall of Pain thing. What have you been doing?
Yeah. And this is the issue. It's a big issue. And the fact is, the people in the office need to get their fucking egos in check.
Mm-hmm.
And need to allow their talent to work. It's like they're signing all these Ring of Honor guys, which is great, in my opinion, because most of these guys have a hell of a lot of experience. But then you start burying them. And you're like, well, they're paying their dues.
or they keep the leash too tight.
Yeah. And then these guys get frustrated and they're like, fuck you, we're just going to go.
Mm-hmm. Basically, what this
is-
all boils down to, in my mind, is creative is the ones that are, for the most part, more responsible for these talent getting over. And if it's an issue of motivation, that's your job as an employer to motivate your employees. It's not your employee's job to want to suck your dick.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
I've said to people before when they've talked to me about whether or not they want a promotion at a job or something like that, they're not in the position to promote you. You're in the position to promote yourself by earning a promotion, but at the same time, they have to give you incentive to want that promotion, and they have to give you the ability to get that promotion, because you can work your ass off and get nowhere, and you're not going to work your ass off anymore. You're going to do the bare minimum because that's all that's necessary to survive in your workplace. So if WWE themselves, if the officials that are complaining about the talent, if they don't look at themselves in the mirror and figure out what they're doing wrong and fix that, I mean, it's not all their problem, but they are a problem as well. They can't just blame it on the talent. That's basically my whole thing to wrap it up. Any last thoughts on this before we go to part 3?
Well, yeah, the people... okay, you can go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Basically, I just want to touch a little bit on what you're saying about enforcement. There's a difference between negative reinforcement and positive. If you give someone an incentive to do better, they will. If you just penalise them for not doing better, then of course they're not going to do better. They're just going to sit there and stagnate, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
As I was going to say, they have plenty of talented guys on their roster right now and a whole bunch of really talented people in their developmental right now. There are plenty of people that, if they give the chance, they could have some major future stars. So they just got to give these guys a chance. And if they don't, then they're never going to solve their own problem. And it's just going to escalate. It's more on creative than the actual talent. And it's a shame.
Yep. Dace, last thoughts?
It's a shame because WWE really had me hooked from July to December, and within the past month and a half, they have destroyed all interest that I got back into it. And you know what? You keep burying yourselves, I'll end up watching TNA, and that is a sad fact.
Well, that's a good little transition because we're going to go to the sad fact itself in part 3 with the TNA Against All Odds 2012 pay-per-view results and review. So check that out coming up right now.